there is a house I lived in 2012 in the summer and winter in Florida. These people had a really nice house in a really crappy neighborhood, and they couldn't stand living there anymore, but they didn't want the crappy neighbors to destroy their house, so I lived there, and it was interesting. Now, this is the Blue Door.
I've seen that film 1,000 times, so I'll probably recognize it, I imagine. Yeah.
The video is rolling. Excellent.
So this was a bar, coffee house, lawyer's office. My friend William was a lawyer, and he bought this house to have his office, but he only needed a corner of it, so the rest he turned into a coffee house. And it was when all these young kids who went to college, the collapse happened, they couldn't get a job, so they went back to Mommy and Daddy's house to live in the basement, and they hung out in this place.
All right.
Did it go, PH?
Yeah, baby.
Remember it too? Yeah, oh, yeah, totally.
Let's see if you remember this.
So this guy was a Iranian surgeon, retired. But he had been a musician before he became a doctor, back in the day.
I feel like we're on a whaling ship, sharpening the harpoons for the great white one.
They can't play that
Probably 10 years.
That's crazy.
That is the bomb, P. Bomb. Aida.
That's cool.
Aida.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has seen. Oh, I love opera. Yeah. We have a seat over there. Can you bring it over? Yeah. Hey, Chris. We're giving opera over the piano. Marching off to a premiere war right there now.
Cool, I like that shirt. You want to see what I drew a little bit earlier?
Mm-hmm. This is, I am Grandpa Smurf, so. Oh, Mr. Mushroom.
My little elf warrior.
Yep. Mm-hmm. On black paper, I like that.
Yeah, this is actually my favorite charcoal.
Charcoal paper, yes.
So every night we would go there and sit and have coffee and play music and talk and just have a generally good old time. Kind of what they had in Paris in the 1890s. And so William had all these instruments just on the wall. And an amp and a mic. And you could just pick it up and sing. These three guys were software developers. They were building apps. And a guy with a red hat, he had made some cash doing apps, but you wouldn't think it looking at these guys. And this was the cross-star lover couple, and she was the manager of the coffee house, and our boy there, he had been a SEAL in Iraq, and he became a political what do you call those guys who organize political? He got the mayor in. He was really well connected, and he and I would do things in the city culturally. And this was the crew. We were all in love. I had my little sweeties.
That's right. You guys should go sing. I'm ready.
Alex, you got a good voice there, bud. Nice falsetto. You should be the lead singer of our band someday. You all wearing dresses.
That day in the future. Sometimes there's horror.
One time. Hey, you play bass, right? Yeah, man.
We're all gonna be like the kids in Mexico and our Christmas party.
Our other bass player. No problem.
And me and you.
So I'm thinking maybe you should. It's gonna be this guy and I, Greg, and
I was actually talking to.
And this was a friend of mine who was a pretty amazing artist. He would just take junk and make stuff. And this is his backyard. And the ocean was just right there, meaning a couple blocks from where we were. And this is my friend John's, not Johnny John, but John from Massachusetts, from Boston. He was a Southie, and he had been he bought this house in Port St. Lucie for nothing, and he'd been there for 20 years. And he really turned it into a Garden of Eden, that's for sure. Because outside of it, this is his backyard, and out in the front was the hood. But in Florida, anything grows. It's pretty friggin' amazing. And we were just, 2 miles to the ocean from his house. I spent a winter at his house. He was a generous guy. Oh, here's my sweetie, Tiff. She ran a tiki bar in Miami. And for some reason, she thought I was fun, sexy. This is another bar, and this is, I think, Hollywood. Yeah, she was wanted to be a shaman. He thought he was a shaman. There's Tiff. Here are the girls. They worked for the Desperate Lawyers, and they were loads of fun. They just wanted to have a good time. And yes, this guy was just a little strung out. He was the drummer of the band. These girls were just so much fun. And they weren't even drunk. So this is the difference between that other group at the Blue Door and this at the Sandbox. Everyone was just a little angst. Now this was an idea of a club that, it was a great thing. And it was like on the strip, and the guy put about 20 tons of sand in his parking lot and turned it into a place where people could hang out. But not many people hung out. Except the girls from the Desperate Lawyers. And they were fun. Yeah, the girls over there having a good time. That's the house band. Going through the motions. The only thing happening was the girls. That was the only thing happening. And they were so much fun. They were dependable to have a good time. They weren't self-conscious. They weren't trying to prove anything. We were just having always a good time. What's the difference? Good time, angst. Good time, angst. Good time. Anyway. Here's my sweetie. Ricky. She was, she's a big-time news girl now. But she was working a little TV station down there in South Florida. And she went up to Orlando, and now, she's moving up the thing. But she was the most sweetest, kindest, smartest. I met her at the Blue Door. She was sitting at her laptop writing her story, and I had a bunch of books, and she said, "What are you reading?" And we started talking about French Impressionism and existentialism and religion, and she was just the best. She didn't care I was an old guy. We were just sweet on each other. Waking up to breakfast, she always had a book in her hand. And a camera. I was showing her how to shoot. Yep, she's getting pretty close there. This is a story she was doing on a rich lady who had a farm for misused and abused animals. There they are. And this lady, she was somebody I knew from New York who was a disco queen. And Ricky, she could just light anybody up. This woman, she wasn't doing too good. And Ricky could make anybody just smile. Yeah, this girl had what can I say? Disco for 20 years, that'll do it to you. She was one of the disco girls. Here's me when I was big, really big. I was pushing 500 pounds in that picture. It was like, I'm like a third of the guy I was in that picture. Well, there she is, Ricky. There's Homie, my boy Homie, and his mom, Bella. And there's Ricky with William. William, there's my buddy, the lawyer, who started the Blue Door. And this is another place on the other side of Stewart. This is kind of almost near Jensen Beach. Said anything grows in Florida. And this was, these guys, she worked at Hewlett Packard. She was one of their high flying engineers, and he was a investment banker. And he's pretty old. He was 80-ish, and she was 50-ish, 60-ish. They were sweet couple. They were kind of, they had both made a lot of money, and they were retired. And they used to love just to hang out with me and all the places I hung out. I used to take them. I met them once in a restaurant, and we just started talking, and they just would call me up and take me to breakfast, and then I would, they would be part of my day, and we'd go to all the places I'd hang out, and they just loved that. All the young people and different people, and there's me and Rick. Yeah, she's such a sweetie. And this is the inside of the Blue Door. And this was a nightclub, and this nightclub was pretty amazing in that it was all the bands and acts they had were off of cruise ships. And the guy had this bar, and he used to be a cruise ship guy, and it was pretty amazing. And there's Captain Sally with the red hair, and she was like, big time, super tanker captain. She was pretty amazing. And so was this girl, Kasha. Here's her mom hanging out with us. The VIP room, and they were great. They were a great band. It's Captain Sally eating the bird. There's some tourists I stuck hats on. And there's a house I was taking care of. There was no furniture in it, but it was a nice house. Had a swimming pool. There's Rick. Always had a camera in her hand. And that's her buddy. Rick. She's married now to a weatherman. And she, like I said, she's moving up the ladder. I tried to get her to take, I said, Rick, editing is everything. And that is true about cameras and photos. You don't take pictures of everything, just the things that need to be taken pictures of. Okay, that's the end of that one.